For more discussion of what happened today, Dave Maney is a tech entrepreneur and a fan of Facebook. Roger McNamee was one of Facebook's first investors and now a critic sometimes of the company. Both of them join us. So, Roger, first to you. The head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, said today that he and the company are happy to censor hate speech, but was unclear exactly on what hate speech is, and then suggested that maybe artificial intelligence will settle that question. If you care about freedom of speech, does that make you uncomfortable?
The whole thing makes me uncomfortable, Tucker. I think the fundamental issue we've got here is that the business model is based on inflammatory emotions, anger, and fear. And once you build a business model on that, it's really the genie's out of the bottle and there's no way to put it back in. And Facebook has shown itself to be less than good at managing the dialogue on its site. And as you pointed out, they are absolutely editing everything. There are a million different things they could show me at any moment in time. They pick the 20 that serve their business model best, and quite clearly they have failed on that, precisely as Senator Kennedy just described.
So, Dave, we had a researcher on, a psychologist recently called Robert Epstein, and he's taken a look at a bunch of different tech companies, and he said specifically about Facebook, if Mark Zuckerberg had sent a targeted message to people identified on Facebook as Hillary voters and encouraged them to vote, he estimates it could have changed the vote totals by 450,000 on Election Day 2016 and changed the course of the election. That's a lot of power for one media company to have. Even if you're for Mark Zuckerberg's political views, should any company have the ability to change election outcomes the way Facebook does?
No, I think you're giving him too much credit. I am not. First of all, I'm not a fan of that political worldview. I am a fan of free enterprise and letting him do what they will. I mean, by that standard, you could say how many people's votes does the New York Times editorial choosing a candidate or anybody else's make an influence? So I don't have I'm very wary of the Facebook site as a user. But this discussion about should we censor them and knock back their political influence, and are they a gigantic monopoly? I mean, I think that's crazy.
But they're literally a monopoly. So in the digital ad space,
they're not a monopoly, Tucker.
Yeah, well, they are.
Tucker,
they are actually. I know because I know the numbers.
Not.
I've worked in this area a lot for 8 years. Let me just give you the following number. So Facebook and Google control over 90% of digital ads. So that means if you run news or anything else that's ad supported online, you're beholden to them. They control the market completely. Why is that not a monopoly?
If you want to say it's a monopoly for digital ads, that's fine. If you want to say it's a monopoly for political content, it's not.
But hold on. Digital ads are what supports all online news coverage apart from the nonprofits. That's the whole deal right there. If you control the ads, you control the companies.
Tucker, are you worried about a monopoly in the digital ad business, or are you worried about a concentration of political power?
Well, I don't think there's a distinction between those two things. I'm worried, in addition to both, by the total inability of the Congress to respond to a looming threat to its own legitimacy from Facebook and Google. Roger, am I being insane here? I don't think
Tucker,
that I am.
I'm on your side on this issue because at the end of the day, the problem we have here is a massive concentration of power. And that concentration of power is in the hands of people who preserve the rights of the First Amendment for their corporations, but they tend to overlook the First Amendment rights of the people who are the users of the sites. And in that process, I mean, what we have is these things that are global. They are influencing democracy all around the world, and we can't find a single example of them influencing it for the better. And I'm with Senator Kennedy. I mean, this thing has gone on both sides. We've seen massive abuses of Facebook on both sides of this thing, and it doesn't look good either way. And we need to reduce Facebook's influence so that we don't have it determining the outcome of any election, whether it's 2012, 2016, 2018, or 2020.
Well, so I think that's right, because in the end, Dave, this is not an American company, or more precisely, a company that sees itself as an American company. I would argue that it in effect is, but they don't believe that. Google doesn't either. They're companies of the world, and yet they have more influence potentially over our voting patterns than Russia or China or any other government. So, like, why wouldn't that be a threat to democracy? I don't understand.
And the worst part of it, Tucker, is that they behave as though they don't have any influence, and as a result, bad actors have been able to manipulate the system, essentially undefended. And to David, my simple point here is that, having watched this company from its earliest days, it has evolved into something very different than it started out as. And I too am a believer in free enterprise, but I'm also a bigger believer in democracy, and I don't believe any company's rights come before the rights of the people of the United States.
So, Dave, I'm going to let you sum it up. Does that concern? Did any of this bother you? I get that you're for free enterprise. I admire that, but did any of this bother you at all?
I largely stopped using the app in January when they went through their latest news revision to decide what I could see and not see. But that doesn't mean that I believe that Senator Kennedy or those other knuckleheads down there today in that hearing, which gives, I'd say it was a goat rodeo, but that's unfair to goat rodeos. Like, you can't let those people make those decisions. Consumers have to make those decisions. And your assertion that it's an unbreakable monopoly, it's just not.
Well, it's not only unbreakable, it's growing in its power. Anyway, thank you both. We're out of time, sadly. Appreciate it.